Hello and welcome to the Overdue Podcast, Episode 4, the Spring Break Edition. I'm Kelly, and with me today are my fellow librarians at Madison College, Mark.
Hello.
And Dana.
Hi there.
Today on the pod, we'll have a book club update with Dana, Facts About Finland, which is the setting of the book for our Overdue Book Club this semester, Memory of Water, and we'll have the segments Waiting in Westeros, Trivial Observations with Mark, and our recommendations. And here's Dana with the book club update.
Thanks, Kelly. Hi, everybody. So hopefully everyone has had a chance to get their copy of the book. If you haven't, make sure to visit our website and request a copy, or stop in and pick up the copy that you've already requested. I hope you've been making good progress as well. We have come up with some dates and times that we can meet to discuss it. We've chosen 4 different dates with 2 times on each day. It's our hope that you can make at least once in March and once in April. So the dates are as follows. Tuesday, March 28th, we'll meet at 9 to 10 in the morning and also 2 to 3 in the afternoon. Also, the following day, Wednesday, March 29th, again at 9 to 10 in the morning or 2 to 3 in the afternoon. So hopefully you can make one of those 4 times. And then again in April, we're going to meet on Tuesday, April 11th, 9 to 10 in the morning or 2 to 3 in the afternoon. Wednesday, April 12th, 9 to 10 in the morning and 2 to 3 in the afternoon. So hopefully you can make one of those times in April as well. So keep reading, and we hope to see you then. And now we have some facts about Finland.
All right. Memory of Water is told in mostly first-person point of view from the perspective of the protagonist, 17-year-old Noria Kaitio, who is studying to become a tea master.
Mm-hmm. The genre of our book club this semester is cli-fi, or climate fiction, so we know that this has something to do with climate change. However, Memory of Water doesn't tackle the issue head-on. Instead, the reader visits an era that is post-climate change. The year and location are not obvious, but if you pay attention while you read, you'll count a few centuries between then and now at least. We also know that the setting is Finland, and further investigation and textual clues point to the far north of the country. So far north, in fact, that I'm pretty sure Noria lives within the Arctic Circle. And what's surprising about knowing that is that Noria lives in a hot, buggy climate. And add to that an invading country from the south, water shortages. One has a lot to work with in regards to climate change. So Norra's Finland is completely foreign to anything we would expect today.
That's the Finland in the novel 200, 300 years from now, but we were wondering about Finland, what it's like today. Here are a few of our favorite facts. Finland has only been a country, as we know it, since 1917, when it declared independence from Russia. They won the right to be an independent country, but Russia invaded them again in 1939. Finland's role in World War II is too complicated to go into, but I urge you to read more about it. It's pretty interesting. Before Russia laid claim to it in 1809, it had belonged to the Kingdom of Sweden since the 13th century.
And the language spoken by 90% of the population in Finland is called Finnish. It is not North Germanic like Norwegian, Danish, or Swedish, nor is it an Indo-European language like Russian, English, or Spanish. Instead, it's a Uralic language, which is similar to Hungarian and Estonian, and it was spoken by the indigenous Sami people of the area. And the Sami people, interestingly, were the only indigenous people of the Scandinavian region that were recognized by the ruling international conventions. Thus, they were the northernmost indigenous people in all of Europe. They lived in teepees or raised houses, they hunted caribou, and they fished. Fast forward about 500 years, and Finnish was still an oral language until a bishop named Mikael Agricola devised the first comprehensive writing system in the 1500s. Around the 19th century, after gaining independence from Russia, a feeling of nationalism emerged, kicking off kicked off by a poet named Elias Lonerot with his epic poem, The Kalevala. And I recommend going to YouTube and looking up The Kalevala. You can hear people very quietly reading this beautiful poem.
I like to whisper. All right. The national dish of Finland is a hearty stew called kerlian, hot pot or hotchpotch, which means that it is made with a hodgepodge or whatever is on hand. It's made of meats and vegetables, and it often has beef, pork, but sometimes other meats are used. Onions, bay leaves, allspice, sauce, and peppercorn are staples in the seasoning of the broth. The vegetables are thrown in when they are available. It is traditionally served with mashed potatoes and cranberry or lingonberry preserves on the side.
That sounds awesome.
It does, doesn't it? Also, in Finland, bread is very important and served with almost every meal. They have 5 different types of rye bread and a variety of wheat breads, and also they have oat and potato breads. But certainly rye is their staple and what they're known for. Another interesting fact was Finland had its first woman president, Tarja Halonen, from 2000 to 2012. While in office, 2 of her prime ministers were also women. She had been an early proponent of gay rights, and just this year, Finland passed a same-sex marriage law. She was extremely popular while in office. In 2003, her approval ratings were 88%.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's really
that's
good.
Amazing.
All right. Also, Finland is one of the most sustainable developed countries in the world with a small population and heavily forested landscapes. They are one of the very few countries that can boast of overall consumption of resources being smaller than production per capita, according to the Helsinki Times and the Global Footprint Network.
All right. Finland is receiving the brunt of global warming as temperatures across the Nordic country climb faster than anywhere else in the world. According to the Finnish Meteorological Institute, here are some of the things to expect with climate change in Finland. Winter temperatures in particular will rise. Heat wave periods will probably become more common. The growing season will become longer and warmer. That doesn't sound so bad.
I know.
All right. In summertime, periods of dry weather may even become slightly longer, and the snow-covered period will become shorter. And for some reason, this one was odd, winters will become darker.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And now we've come to the portion of this segment known as the finish line. While certainly not a major theme in Memory of Water, one certainly gets the sense of the stamina and resiliency of the characters, and if they had the time for sports, that they'd be pretty good at it. Actually, Finnish people have been sturdy and resilient and healthy people throughout history. Finnish people have a long history of participating in and being successful at sports. According to computer scientist Craig Neville Manning's site called Medals Per Capita, Finland has won the most Olympic medals per capita in history. A big part of that statistic is its success in winter sports, where Finland is notably strong in cross-country skiing and speed skating. But Finnish people have also been very good in warm weather sports, particularly endurance events. Finland has a long history of producing quality long-distance runners, which has earned themselves the nickname the Flying Finns. Probably the most famous Olympic distance runner in Finnish history is Paavo Nurmi, who is in the top 10 all-time of individual medal winners. He won 9 gold medals and 3 silvers. In fact, the marathon that is annually run up in Hurley, Wisconsin, is known as the Paavo Nurmi Marathon. And if you get to that part of Wisconsin, the far north, and into the Upper Peninsula, a lot of Finnish heritage up in that area. Finnish people, besides long-distance sports, also compete in a wide variety of other types of sports, including some unique ones like floorball. And the unofficial national sport in Finland is known as pesäpallo, and I may have mispronounced that, but P-E-S-A-P-A-L-L-O, which translates to nest ball, and to us would be a very weird variation of baseball. Instead of the ball being pitched horizontally, it's pitched vertically. Somebody tosses it up in the air, and the batter has to try to hit it. And instead of running the bases in a circle, it's actually a zigzag pattern all over the place. So it has a lot of similarities to baseball, but a little strange.
It also sounds like Quidditch.
And sure, and it has some similarities to Quidditch as well, too.
I actually pictured Monty Python.
There you go.
Hello, I'm Dana.
And I'm Kelly, and we're
Waiting in Westeros. We hope you enjoyed our last segment as much as we enjoyed bringing it to you. If you remember, we told you we are on a quest to get people to read or reread our favorite book series, George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire. We discussed the setting of the books in the medieval fantasy land of Westeros and Essos.
We mentioned the dragons, right?
Yes, we did, as well as the direwolves.
Good.
All right, today we'd like to discuss George's novel structure and his use of the POV or point of view characters.
Just a note about spoilers. Don't worry, we won't give any plot points away, and we won't be naming any of the characters.
We like to think of ourselves as Westerosi tour guides, pointing out things of interest and details you might want to take note of.
Yes, like someone who finds out you're going to visit a city that they've recently visited. They can give you good advice on a great restaurant or a nice place to stay, or where to purchase dragon eggs or honeyed locusts.
Yeah, that's a pretty good way to think about it.
All right, so let's get started. Each of the chapters is titled with the main character's name. These are the major POV characters, and they rotate throughout the books. We get a third-person limited perspective. In other words, we get a peek at their thoughts, and we know what's going on around them, the conversations that they are having, or the conversations they are eavesdropping in on.
And next, we have the minor POV characters. These are sometimes titled with the character's name, but it can also be a nickname or a descriptive of the character. These characters only have a few chapters, but they are by no means minor characters.
Oh no, and a note about so-called minor characters. George is such a sensitive writer, he makes even his minor characters multifaceted with a history and purpose. Don't dismiss a character just because they appear on only a few pages. They could have a huge impact later on.
And also, be warned, George likes to give everyone a name, even if they only appear in one scene. So Kelly, remember on your second reading when you listed every named character?
Yes, I do. It took me a really long time.
Yeah, I'm wondering, do you remember how many there were?
Yeah, there were about 1,300 in the first 5 books, at least by my count. There are stable boys, tavern wenches, jailers, guards, servants, orphans,
prophets and prostitutes, sailors, horses, and mythical creatures. Just about everyone gets a name.
Okay, so now this is where it gets a little tricky. There are major characters that don't have a POV. Some will never have one, and some will get a POV later on. We learn about them through a major POV character, or, in the case of a few, several major POV characters.
It's kind of frustrating because we never get to see these characters' thoughts. All we have to go on is what they say and do, and what others say and think about them. I think it adds to the mystery.
Yeah, me too. It's pretty interesting to follow a character for 3 books and then get a peek at their thoughts. You might be surprised at what you read.
Yeah, and it's not always pretty.
Oh boy, is that ever true.
Yeah. There's a lot of debate on who the major characters without a POV are. We counted up at least a dozen.
All right, now hold on to your hats. George has admitted that at least one character is an unreliable narrator, at least in one instance.
Yeah, that kind of blew my mind when I read that. So I hope that's cleared up in the Winds of Winter.
Me too.
All right, and then last of all are the POVs in the prologues and the epilogues.
The POVs in the prologues and the epilogues seem unrelated to the story at first, and they're somewhat supernatural. They're a little confusing and hard to follow. My advice, read them twice. There's a lot of important information in them.
All right. So I think we've pretty much covered George's use of POV in A Song of Ice and Fire. Did we get it all?
Well, you know, we could talk much and more, but our time in Westeros has come to a close.
Yes, just so.
Next time on Waiting in Westeros, we're going to take a stab with the pointy end at dreams, songs, and prophecies. Thank you for listening.
See you next time on
Waiting
Waiting
in
in Westeros.
Westeros.
So, yeah, you know that thing about the unreliable narrator?
I do. I know it well.
Yeah. Did you pick up on that your first reading?
Not really. I was just very confused.
Yeah. It wasn't until the second or maybe the third time that I read it that I noticed it. Or maybe it was you that pointed it out to me.
I think it was. It was a relief when I actually Googled that on the internet. And
Wait a minute. This is wrong.
all right. So the next segment is Trivial Observations with Mark. So, all right. We'll get ready, Dana.
Okay.
We'll be stumped, I'm sure.
All right, and as usual, we have a two-part question this week. The first part, and both have some connection with Finnish heritage and history. The first part actually deals with over in Finland, and in the book Memory of Water, women are very strong characters, the main characters. And although it's not always been the case in Finnish history, recently, particularly in the latter part of the 20th century and into the 21st century, there's been a lot of women in government in Finland. And the first part of the question is, can you tell me, since the start of the 21st century, what percentage of the government ministers have been female in Finland?
In Finland.
So the prime ministers.
Not the prime ministers, all of the government. Yeah.
like their parliament or something?
Correct.
Oh, gosh.
Shoot, was
The
it
percentage?
The percentage, yeah.
I'm going to say 50.
Okay. Dana?
60%?
Wow.
We're optimistic.
Very optimistic.
Oh,
it's
dear.
47%,
Oh,
which,
well, okay, that's good.
compared to many countries.
Well,
is
the United States is 18% of the House.
Good point.
Not
Yeah.
even a quarter. Yeah.
Wow.
So good for Finland.
Yeah.
And the positive thing about that statistic is it's continually on the uptick, so it may not be long before it's 50 and 60%. Okay. The second part of the trivia has to do with some Finnish-American trivia here in the United States. And I mentioned about the northern part of Wisconsin and Upper Peninsula having a lot of Finnish heritage. Actually, if you go way up into the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, you get to the Keweenaw Peninsula and to the twin towns of Houghton, which many people may know as the home of Michigan Tech University. But across the Portage Channel is the city or town of Hancock, which happens to have a very good liberal arts college called Finlandia University. And the trivia question is, before it became a four-year college, it was a two-year college, and it had a different name than Finlandia. What was its name? And as a clue, it has something to do with Finnish heritage.
Oh, gosh.
The Sami College?
Suomi College is actually very good, Dana. Suomi,
Okay.
and which is many Finnish people refer to Finland as Suomi, and it was called Suomi College.
Good.
By the way, both when it was Suomi College and now that it's Finlandia University, their library, the Maki Library, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, M-A-K-I, actually has the largest Finnish-American historical collection in the world.
Oh, okay.
Wow. Even more than Finland.
Finnish-American
I see.
collection, yep. So the Finnish probably don't really care too much about the American.
Oh, I'm sure they do. All right. So is that it for?
Then that is it for trivial observations for
All
this
right.
week.
So next we're going to do our Anything Goes recommendations. And first up is Dana. What do you recommend for us?
All right, so I was going to recommend a book, but just this morning when I was researching the language, which was fascinating, I came across a spoken word poet that I wanted to recommend. His name is Simon Sandwich, which is easy to remember.
Right.
And he does a spoken word where he takes the entire Kalevala, which I mentioned earlier as the epic poem that kind of sprung the nationalism movement in Finland. And that was a very long poem with many cantos and verses. And he summarizes the whole thing in 8 minutes.
Great.
And it's very fast, and it's in English, and it's very animated. So check out Simon Sandwich online. He's got great stuff.
And where could we find it online?
I would do a search of Googling.
Just Simon Sandwich.
Yeah.
All right. That should be easy enough.
That's how I found him.
All right.
All right. So next is me, and I would like to recommend an essay called The Lost Art of Reading, Why Books Matter in a Distracted Time, and it's by David Ulin, U-L-I-N. He wanted to read The Great Gatsby with his son, who was reading it for school, and he found he couldn't concentrate like he used to. He used to read for hours and hours, and he just couldn't concentrate, too distracted. And that kind of hooked me in because I have the same problem. I can't read the way I used to. I'm too distracted. And he, starts the premise as he's not anti-technology, and neither am I. But like me, he used to read for hours and hours with nothing distracting him. And he has a rather long quote, and I'll go ahead and say it from the book, and it kind of just sums it up, his thoughts on it. We need a certain kind of silence, an ability to filter out the noise. That seems increasingly elusive in our over-networked society where every buzz and rumor is instantly blogged and tweeted, and it is not contemplation we desire, but an odd sort of distraction. Distraction masquerading as being in the know. In such a landscape, knowledge can't help but fall prey to illusion, albeit an illusion that is deeply seductive with its promise that speed can lead us to illumination, that it is more important to react than to think deeply, that something must be attached to every bit of time. So, I completely agree with that. And he also goes into that ebooks promise us that, you can have 1,000 books on your e-reader. And he says, we don't need more books, we need more time, we need more silence. And so he doesn't really have a solution to this problem, but I kind of came up for myself what I can do to be less distracted. And when I sit down to read, all devices will be with not in reach of me. And it also helps that I have a sweet old lap cat that reminds me I don't really need to get up after all. And when I do feel that pull towards my iPhone or iPad, I'm just going to ask myself, does it really need my attention now? Do I really need to check the headlines now? And so I've been doing that for about 4 days now, and it has helped. I have been able to sit and read longer. So we'll see, if I just get into the habit, if that's really going to take over. But he ends the essay by saying, reading becomes an act of meditation. I sit down. I try to make a place for silence. It's harder than it used to be, but still, I read.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
I haven't read that book, but I have read several articles in the last half year or so on the concept of deep reading or slow reading, and just the importance of taking your time, disconnecting from technology, and trying to read something, more substantial than, a one-page web document.
Exactly, yeah. And that's what he talks about. We're still reading. We're just not reading this books and deep reading. And he feels that we probably should be doing more of that.
And there's a connection to critical thinking, right?
Yes, he didn't really go into that so much. It's more a personal essay, and but very good. And the Madison College Library owns it, so I recommend checking it out. It's not very long either.
And my recommendation this week is a streaming video from our library subscription database, Films on Demand. If you've never checked it out, take a look. There's a number of ways to get to it from our library homepage. There's a direct link on the first page. Otherwise, you can go to our articles tab and get to it there. And from that collection, I'm recommending a 2012 documentary narrated by Dan Rather entitled Finland's Educational Successes. If you type in Finland's Educational Successes, it talks about statistics that show that Finland has one of the best public school systems in the world, as far as test scores from students and different type of information that they've collected. And its students spend less time in a classroom than any other industrialized nation, and the government spends $3,000 less per student than the United States. They use a lot of technology in their educational processes, but they also have a lot of old school principles that are in there. And they also take time during the day, and perhaps my co-host here can help me out. I've already forgotten the term from...
didn't they call it a hobby hour?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
They have a hobby hour during the day for like an hour or so after lunch, where students are encouraged to do some creative activities, certainly crafts and everything. Might also be some physical activities. This is all in addition to extracurricular activities after school. It's actually a time right in the middle of the day meant to be kind of a kick-in for stimulating creative juices. So I would recommend checking out, again, that streaming video entitled Finland's Educational Successes from the Library's Database Films on Demand.
That sounds great. I think I will check that out. All right. So I guess that wraps it up for today. Next time on the Overdue podcast, we will have a special guest, Madison College instructor Matthew Lazaro. He teaches weather and climate, and he's going to talk to us about climate change. All right, that's it for us today. Thank you for listening. This has been a production of Madison College Libraries in conjunction with the Creator Studio.